think the most important thing to recognize in a really large situation, like a worldwide event, you taking on that energy is not going to fix that situation. It's not going to heal it. So just becoming aware of that can kind of help energetically start to help that move, and getting into the present moment and getting grounded so that you can release the energy you've taken on is such a game changer.
Welcome back to the Sacred Soul Podcast. I'm super excited for today's guest. Melanie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I like to start my episodes off, just a way to get to know all of my guests and to see how you feel, how you think. I have a signature question, and it is, who are you and who are you not?
And I know you kind of prepped me with that a little bit, and I was like, ooh, I really love that question because I think it really speaks to a really deep depth of somebody and their inner knowing of who they are. And, at a basic level, my name is Melaine Sheree. I'm a lifelong medium and spiritual teacher, and I teach empaths how to take that understanding of being really highly sensitive in the world and become empowered in that awareness of energy and spirit. And who am I not? I would say I'm not somebody who is very close-minded. I'm not somebody who doesn't have curiosity about the world and about other people. I'm not somebody who doesn't notice and feel all of the subtle things in the world that many other people seem to really not pick up on. So
Beautiful. I love that. And I have to say, I just enjoy this question never gets old because I ask so many people, even outside of podcasts, believe it or not, even when I'm on a date, you guys, I ask people this question, but I enjoy the answers. Like there's an infinite number of ways that we can perceive ourselves in any moment. And of course, we're all changing. That's kind of the point of the question, but your answer is beautiful. And I love that. And so, as we dive into today's conversation, being highly sensitive, being an empath, what exactly does that mean for people who may or may not fully understand?
I think the way that people tend to identify themselves as being an empath is when you start to notice that you feel everything. You feel other people's emotions, you notice situations and you feel and take them on, and you're somebody who feels really deeply this call to want to help in the world. But at the same time, there's that knowing that everything is so depleting because it's all coming into your energetic field and you're becoming the effect of all of those things. So a lot of times, there's both that gift that we get for having something that we can say, oh, I really identify as this thing. It really makes sense. It describes my lived experience. But there's also that piece of being an empath that really describes not being able to have a say over what you're experiencing and how you're experiencing it. And that there's nothing you can do about this thing that's happening to you, which at some point can kind of become, a part of that label that is somewhat disempowering. So that's kind of how I see people really find their way to that understanding of what an empath is, and sometimes really where they get a little bit stuck in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that disempowerment piece, that's something I just didn't like to witness it. And I probably used it too a little bit, and I don't even consider myself as much. I mean, I have spiritual abilities and like all the things. But maybe just at this point in my life, I've gotten so good at boundaries and just, I don't know what you want to call it. But the disempowerment piece, I was going to go here. We were going to go here later probably, but since we're here, let's dive into this. Like, what exactly does that look like?
There's a lot of different ways that we as human beings try to make sense of our lived experience. So we kind of give ourselves these labels that we can identify with. You can identify with a medical diagnosis or your identity, your gender, your marital status. There's so many different things that we anchor into in our multidimensional experience to make sense of the infinite. And so when we're talking about the word empath, we're speaking about that dynamic where you're experiencing the world and it's all happening to you, and you don't have a say over that. And a lot of people that I work with kind of get stuck in that belief about being an empath, where they feel that there's nothing that they can do, no steps that they can take, nothing that they can change. It just is that description of who they are at their core, and that can never shift in any type of way. And once you've kind of anchored yourself into that, it becomes this place where you're the effect of the world. You're really kind of emanating this energy of being a person who is like a sponge. And so you're putting that out there in the world. I'm a sponge, I'm this open field, I take everything on, and then you inevitably are doing more of that. So that's kind of where I see people get stuck in that really disempowerment, is there's this image of who they are in the world linked to their identity. But when you start to begin to be able to learn how to not absorb everything, or to take the steps to empower yourself or to set healthy boundaries, it's not so much a diagnosis anymore.
We don't have to feel victim to our gifts to
Yeah.
the point to where, and it can feel like a curse when you're in it. Believe me, I've been there. I've walked into the side of the grocery store and I was hearing everyone's thoughts and it drove me crazy. Next thing you know, I'm crying for no reason. It's just like I've been there. I was really young when that happened, but once we learn that it's literally a superpower that we can, you know, manipulate, not in the traditional sense of the word, but we can actually like use our abilities and our in the energies that are happening in the room for our benefit. And we can manage it and have those boundaries. So important. And when you were growing up, um, what was it like for you? Like, when did you start to realize that you are sensitive, intuitive, all the abilities? And what was your journey towards learning your own boundaries and playing around with some of that?
Yeah. So my personal lived experience was that I was noticing spirit from a very young age, which might be a little bit different from what typically people that are empathic might experience first and foremost. But it was the sense that I was seeing and experiencing the world in a way that nobody around me was. And I just felt very different from everybody else in that I noticed, sensed, heard, felt, saw things that other people didn't. And not having any basis for, hello, I am your parent, this is how you navigate this as somebody who's really highly sensitive, was frustrating for me because I felt like I really needed that extra support to find how to really be in the world, which is so overstimulating. There's always things changing and shifting and unpredictable things and people in your life that struggle or you struggle. And it just felt like the volume on life was turned up to 1,000% in every sensory way. So it was a lot. It was a lot. And um, I just found myself feeling more comfortable in nature, a little bit removed from the chaos of social interactions. For me, were felt fairly chaotic. I really enjoyed company of animals and just being in my imaginary world in a big way.
Mm. It's beautiful that you had nature and animals to be like your safe space, so to speak, where things were less chaotic and are, but you're still probably experiencing your imaginary world, or like, speaking with the elements or speaking with the trees, or still into. Do you have a specific instance where maybe you were using your abilities. Maybe this goes back to when you were really young. And the basis for my question is I was using my abilities and didn't know that they were abilities. I thought it was just totally normal. And so when I blurted something out my family, I thought that everyone was telepathic, right? And I thought that I was just deciding to use words at that moment. But do you have any instances? Because typically I feel like for some of us, it's like we're kids and it's so natural to us. And then we have to learn, like, oh, wait, no, I think I'm different. I think that other people can't see this angel. I think that people can't hear someone else's words. Do you have anything like that?
In so many instances where, I think my earliest memories are me in my room as a toddler in the crib, and there were people in my room talking to me and keeping me up and playing with me and touching my stuff and touching me. And I would call my parents in and say, there's people in my room. And they were like, "Sweetie, there's no monsters under your bed." So now I have this context for, okay, spirit is monsters under my bed. And past that, it was, a lot of hearing that nonverbal communication and speaking to that when there was a lot of things that were being unsaid within my household. So I was always kind of calling those things out. And sometimes it's not received great for people. So you slowly but surely learn that, there's what's expected of you in society, which is kind of this um, idealized version of who other people think you should be, how you should act, what you should be responding to. And there's what you're actually probably experiencing, which can be communication from spirit or hearing nonverbal communication, feeling emotional energy. I would say a really vivid experience that I had more recently was that I had met a friend of a friend, and she came and shook my hand. She was so warm and loving and smiling. She had this smile from ear to ear. She was like really very kind. And all I could see was this horrible pain in her face. And when she left, I said to my friend, I was like, you know, I think she's going through a really tough time. She's like, yeah, she's in the midst of a divorce. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're really worried there for a second. But it becomes one of those things where you just discern where and when to kind of bring things up or to point things out and how to really navigate with those sensory abilities. There's a lot of really poor examples of psychic mediumship without boundary in our society. So, what's really popularized is things, no offense to these people like the Long Island medium, I think she's a great medium. I personally would never approach somebody out in public and say, "Oh, hello, I see that you're minding your own business. I have your dead relative here." It's so violating for the somebody
Mhm.
not asking for that information. And I think it really speaks to having a boundary with other people because even
Mhm.
though I might get information, it doesn't mean I need to point at a pain that this person that I barely know is going through. They don't know me. Or, I don't really necessarily need to be the communicator for all of spirit. Can get really exhausting. There's so much that can come through at all times if you're not setting that boundary with spirit and with just all of that communication in general. How are you even going to hear your own thoughts? It's like a whole peanut gallery of people around you all the time. So I really tell my students, it's really important that somebody is asking you for that information. And even when they're sitting in front of you for a reading, to just be really discerning about how much to say. Because, sometimes you can deliver something that might help somebody, but it depends on how much information you give and how you deliver that information. Just as an example, let's say, you're sitting in front of me, you want a reading and somebody has passed, and I sit down and I go, well, looks like your dead relatives here and they died in a horrible car crash. That might be really not helpful for you. There's this level of drama there, and there's probably a level of pain there for you. But
Mhm.
to then instead, open it up and say, so, what were you wanting to look at today? They're like, oh, well, I have a relative who passed. I'd really like to speak to them. This is their name. And then I'm looking for, how much information can I give that's helpful to this person that doesn't put them in a space where I'm re-traumatizing them because they're obviously in some sort of thing that they're working through here. So again, it kind of speaks to that discernment and that boundary. And we just have horrible examples in our media about what that looks like.
Yeah, I don't even recognize the lady that you were talking about, but I do know like in our culture, like when this stuff is on TV, I can't even watch it. But yeah, it is depicted like just I used to have a word for it, something around like low energetic hygiene or something like that. And really it's just like low boundaries and having people's permission, even when they first sign up, like sometimes they don't even know how deep they're going to go with you yet. They don't even know it's possible. So like letting them know like, hey, we're crossing a bridge, we're crossing another bridge, or just, yeah, work like kind of collaborating with the energy is so important. So I love that. And we're speaking to boundaries quite often so far. How can someone, and let's just say they're not doing this stuff for work. Let's just say they're just naturally in tune and they're still working at their accounting job, or like, they're just doing their daily life, right? But they might be getting bombarded with all of the sensory experiences and maybe all the clear audiences, and maybe they don't know how to turn some of those things down or to have the boundaries. What are some first few steps that they could take?
I wish that there was one simple thing that I could say that would be the fix all for it, because I do know how it is to be bombarded and how frustrating it is. So if that is you, just know that there are other people out there that are experiencing the exact same thing that have made it through and are no longer experiencing that. With that, it does take practice and persistence to shift the energy around that dynamic and why things are continuing to come in. The first place that you can really start is in a practice within your own time and space where you're kind of taking time for yourself to really manage your own energy. So, whether that's a meditative practice or a yogic practice, something where you are doing a bit of energy work that's self healing for yourself, is really going to help to start to create a better boundary between you and the world. The next thing that I really see as a key piece to this is really applying that sense and idea of boundary in your life in general. Because if you don't have boundaries with people with bodies, you're not going to have boundaries with spirits without bodies. So, knowing that there's a lot of that happening is kind of a piece of, okay, well, now I need to re-shore this up for myself. It's a lot of telepathic communication in particular. What I really have to say about that is that that's an awakened fifth chakra sense, which means that you have a very developed ability to hear, send, and receive telepathic communication, which to me really speaks to being in an environment for a prolonged period of time where your voice was suppressed or where other people around you, their voices were suppressed. So, in order to kind of shift that dynamic, you have to start to really listen to yourself. And when I mean listen to yourself, I mean take action in listening to yourself, really honor yourself, and really speak your mind truly and fully, even if you're afraid that other people won't like it. That will almost automatically start to help you shift that dynamic.
That's beautiful. I haven't heard that one before for the telepathic skill set. Beautiful. Really listening to yourself and letting yourself be heard. Yeah, that was the gist of that. That's beautiful. And for some people, even that might be a struggle. Is that talking to themselves out loud? Is that journaling? What does that look like?
So, with listening to yourself, it's going to be where in life we have obligations and roles roles and things we feel like we have to do. And inevitably, there are times where we feel like we have to do things we don't want to do. Becoming somebody who really truly listens to themselves is starting to really hear when something is not for you. So, really honoring that for yourself. If it's a relationship, if it's a job, if it's a role you're playing, if it's something that you felt like you've needed to strive towards or there's pressure for you to be, really hearing that communication within yourself that says, this is not what I want to be doing. I hate this.
Mm.
Every time I do this, I'm exhausted, I'm drained. I want to change my job. I want to escape from my relationship. I feel so unfulfilled. That is that communication telling you that something is not in alignment there. So, really listening to that part of you. Also, the cues from your body, listening to that emotional energy that moves through you, not suppressing your emotions, listening to your body's needs. Are you overriding your need for sleep? Are you not feeding yourself enough because you want to be hot for summer? Are you, like we do these things, right? So it's a matter of really being willing to listen to those things within yourself. And then as far as communicating with other people, that's authentically communicating, this is how I feel. This is how I feel about this pressure to do this thing. I'm really frustrated. This is something I've been thinking about. Actually, my opinion about this is this, and it might be different than everybody around you, but that's okay. It allows you to begin to be able to shift that dynamic within your own energetic space.
So powerful. And some more situations. What about when people are trying to sleep and they can't sleep and they are having, you know, just they're sensing all kinds of things happening in their room or in their home or whatever it might be. Again, just all those abilities are happening. Any suggestions there?
Absolutely. So I would say the biggest thing for sleep, it can be a lot of different things that happen that won't allow us to sleep. So whether that's communication from spirit, really needing to set that boundary and clean out that space where all that attention is gathering above your body at night, whether it's that your whole space energetically is kind of this glowing beacon of energy that's attracting attention. There's ways to kind of shift that so that you can start to kind of put your sleep space into a rest vibration. A lot of times I see that things are unprocessed throughout somebody's day that they're still sitting in, and the body won't let you leave to go to sleep. And it's kind of asking you to stay there and assess and move through and kind of create space for it to feel safe so that you can go to sleep. And with all of that, I would say an energy work practice can really help you move through, process, or shift the energy in your sleep space. It's very, very common though for people that are sensitive to energy. I even have nights where I'll be up till 4 in the morning for no reason other than I'm just processing or I'm getting downloads. So it does happen where something will start to kind of shift something and it just disrupts my sleep. And I tell people, it's been 3 nights and I've been up since 4 and I've been getting downloads.
Right. Right. Yeah, that happens to me as well. And then recently, maybe this month of August has been a little bit calm, but like maybe I don't know, during earlier summertime, it's like I was waking up from dreams in the morning, so I was going through like a full night of sleep, but the dreams were so strange, and for me, the energy that was like trying to come in from the dream into my day to day, I was like, oh no, no, no. This is heavy. I don't know what happened in the dream, but I can't take this with me. So, and I have my things that I do. I love cold plunging because I feel like it's energy work and it's all kinds of stuff all in one. I could just jump into a cold plunge and get it done, do a little bit of a meditation in there. But for people who are kind of waking up from their dreams, feeling worse, not feeling good, maybe they had some nightmares or they just don't understand what was happening. Any tips there?
I think the biggest thing is setting the intention for your sleep space before you go to sleep. If you've been having a lot of difficulty or you're expecting a certain outcome from going to sleep, you're kind of already putting the energy in that direction unintentionally. So if you kind of set the intention for what you do want to experience when you sleep, that can be very helpful. And a lot of times, what I'll tell my students is, really see yourself as getting a lot of rest, waking up feeling rested, or really resting in that space out of the body because half of the time people are really busy out of the body. They're really busy orchestrating things and planning and healing and putting things together in their lives. And they come into the body in the morning and they're exhausted because they've been doing all this work out of the body. So, really setting that intention for rest or for a clear sleep space or maybe just for pleasant dreams can really, really help in such a crazy way. It does take having that level of certainty around, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm certain that when I do this practice, it's going to happen. So if it doesn't happen the first time, it doesn't mean you failed and that it doesn't work. It means you're kind of building that muscle of certainty around how you set that space for yourself to sleep.
Mm, thank you for that. I like that one. Another situation, this one's tough. What about when people are feeling like into the pain and suffering that's in other parts of the world, whether it's because of wars or whatever's going on? And yes, the simple suggestion is maybe don't watch the news, as often or things like that. But um, aside from the obvious, how else can someone navigate it if they feel like they just see something flash on social media, some video of a war zone or a very disadvantaged or hostile situation, and they literally feel, and I'm sure you can imagine what this feels like, they literally feel everything in their current reality. Any tools or tips there?
So I think the biggest thing for a lot of people is that when they're kind of merging energetically with a very charged situation, what you're really noticing is that you are attempting to heal that situation. So at the core, an empath is somebody who is an unconscious healer. You're taking things on into your space and you're attempting to heal it. And then once it's in there, you're overwhelmed, you're exhausted, you're frustrated, you're like, I don't know why I'm like this. So if you are somebody who gets hit with those different things and they really come in and affect you, and you're kind of sitting in it, I think the most important thing to recognize is first and foremost that in a really large situation like a worldwide event, you taking on that energy is not going to fix that situation. It's not going to heal it. So just becoming aware of that fact can kind of help energetically start to help that move. The second step for you would really be to learn how to ground and getting into the present moment and getting grounded so that you can release the energy you've taken on is such a game changer. It kind of helps you to be in your own energetic space and not across the world or trying to kind of be in that situation to fix it. It can help you release anything that's gotten really lit up and charged for you around that situation, which is oftentimes linked to maybe something from a past life, or there's a previous experience, or maybe you have karma with somebody that is in that situation currently, and you just shoop, all comes in, you become it. It's so multifaceted in the ways that we do end up merging with different things like that. But keeping it simple, getting grounded, recognizing that putting all of that pain into your own space is not going to do anything for that situation and it's not going to do anything for you can kind of really begin that process.
That's beautiful. But here's the objection that I've heard with that is that there's the statement like, how can you not care about this, or et cetera, et cetera. It's almost like the person who's feeling everything, yes, they're attempting to heal it on one level and they may not be aware of that, but it's almost like they don't want to disconnect because then they think that maybe that they are cold or that they don't care or or that they don't have a heart. Any insight?
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that it's not about not caring. It's about caring about your own well-being and recognizing that what you're doing in that moment is you're saying, you know, this situation is so charged, I'm willing to completely tank myself for the next 6 months and be in a complete depression spiral because I can't let this go. And it really is that boundary around kind of creating space for you and having compassion for what's happening, doing what you can when you feel really activated by a world situation, holding space for that and kind of, doing whatever you can physically that could be of help, whether that's donating or, volunteering your time or spreading information to help a cause. I don't really see you taking that energy into your space to hold it and let it completely deplete you and spin you out or deflate you in a lot of different ways as being helpful to that situation.
Mm, boom. That was very profound. And so just breathe this in, you guys, just as you're listening. Like this is it's gold, and no one gives us this manual, when we're in kindergarten and we're like all realizing our abilities. Like we don't get this manual in this reality yet. So
It's not something, that I haven't experienced. I've been in places where horrible events have happened. I've been from places and visited places that horrible things have happened. I've experienced things myself personally that have been very local and also very close to my own heart. And it is really, something that does happen and affect all of us. But it is also a space where you can be empowered in that awareness of those things, and it doesn't have to become something that just completely sends you in a spiral.
yeah, absolutely. And again, boundaries is like it's the foundation. Boundaries and grounding, what you mentioned earlier, I feel like those are the foundation tools.
They are truly.
Yeah, so beautiful. And so now switching gears just slightly, I have a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs that listen to the show. And, as we're building our entrepreneurship, our businesses, AKA babies, if our businesses can feel like babies, or just our projects or our passions or whatever it is, and we're putting this stuff out online. I would like to start with some of your experiences. How did you start to navigate your sensitivities with being a successful online you are your own brand, being a successful online brand?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was that I had this vision for what I wanted. I knew that it was going to come with challenges, seeing as though I notice everything. And putting myself out there was really challenging because I felt like I needed to have this wall between me and the people that I was connecting with. And as I began to kind of try to put myself out there, I kept hitting that protection there because I didn't want to um, be perceived in a particular way, be misunderstood, have people, inevitably that are on the internet say horrible things about me. And at some point, as I was kind of just putting myself out there and worrying about those things, I realized that it was taking away from me being able to have fun and just be myself. And once I just let that go and was not so worried about what other people thought, if I was going to have a bunch of people yelling at me in my comments or canceling me, just kind of having the opportunity to have fun and really express what it was like for me and what it's like for my students and clients, it just opened up. And from there, as things kind of grow, you learn how to navigate that level of energy and attention as you're growing in a business. So there's those growth steps where it's uncomfortable. All of a sudden, you have 10 times as many people that want to work with you, or 100 times as many people looking at and viewing your content. And it can be noisy, it can be overwhelming, it can be a lot energetically, but you build up this muscle to it and you start to become really aware of what is affecting you. So for me, the really big step that I took was as things began to grow, it was like I was building this muscle of endurance to how much attention and communication and request and demand was in my space. So when you are starting off in a business and you have that vision for where you want to be, and you're like, oh, this is going so slow. I only have this many clients. I want to make this much revenue. I want to reach this many people or help this many people. It's okay for it to be in those incremental steps. Those incremental steps are helping you to build that up so that you can do that and can have the capacity for that. Because I guarantee if you go from 0 to 10,000 overnight, it's going to be a lot.
Gosh, right? Yeah.
And, I know everybody wants to have a successful business. They want to bring their passion forward and reach people and help people. But let me tell you, it is very important for it to grow organically. It's especially for people who are sensitive. So your higher self is helping you out there with it being in smaller incremental steps.
Yeah. It's happening for your good, right? Yeah. Just like an analogy that I'm thinking about, it's like trying to get, like a 5-year-old to skip a bunch of grades and to go into like sixth grade, right? Like just not possible. I mean, maybe for some kids, but not for the majority because we missed a lot of lessons and a lot of preparation and experiences to get to know ourselves. Like, who are we? Or how do we express ourselves when this person comments this, or when we get these extra new clients per month, like how do we navigate that? And those are the tools and the lessons that carry forward with us.
Truly. And in those kind of earlier stages in your business, you're learning how to navigate difficulties within that space. So, any little challenge that you experience on a small scale, you'll know how to face that on a much larger scale. And you can kind of come up with a space to have this certainty in your business as you move forward because it's happened on a much more manageable level and you made it and you survived that. And then you could take that to, however many more people that you're working with. So it's kind of a really big gift.
Yeah, we alluded to like the comments, like the nasty comments that can come online. Um, but like, how does that impact you today? Like, even though you have your processes, you have your boundaries, you've done the work to get to where you are again, otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? You took those baby steps, but like, how does it still impact you and how do you navigate it?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for people that are highly sensitive is recognizing that rejection sensitivity and really honoring the fact that that's probably there because you've gotten a lot of feedback throughout your lifetime that was particularly not positive. So there's some pain there, right? And each and every time somebody throws that dagger and it sticks, it's your opportunity to go, oh, thank you so much for pointing at this thing that is so unresolved for me still, because this one sent me in a spiral. Thank you so much. Now I get to look at that and work on that and not let that be a point of pain for me anymore that I was unconscious to. Because really, that's what's happening when they're throwing that energy at you. They're throwing it at that point that you're unconscious to. It spins you out, you get stuck, you cry, you get frustrated. That was absolutely me at the beginning of kind of putting myself out there. Everything was very personal and it just stuck. And I wanted to be able to like really take that information to grow with it because it was really pointing at those places where I had something that was unresolved. And, you know, as much as I want to say I'm in a place where I don't care what anybody thinks about me, I'm more so in a place where I'm very certain of who I am as a person. And I know that my role in this world as a teacher is to invite people to be able to grow And part of that invitation is lighting people up in things they're not ready to grow through. So, we sometimes call that triggering people.
Yep.
So if you're out there and you're lighting people up and you're triggering them with the things you have to say or with your opinions, and they're really not for you and they're throwing those daggers, that's okay. Not
Mhm.
everybody is going to like what you have to offer because it's not for everybody. And you don't have to like everybody. You shouldn't like everybody. And no all should like you. So it's okay to not have a lot of people like you because for that small percentage of people that are maybe really not for your content, they're not interested in what you do, and they have unlimited free time to say so, there's hundreds of other people that are so excited to find you in your authentic expression because you get them.
Yes. Yeah. Soul tribe, soul clients, the people who are aligned with us, we're aligned with them. It's even though there's multiple timelines, it's a part of our path for us to meet. And if you can just trust that, um, you'll keep doing what you got to do. Correct, realign, get back up again, and you'll keep at it until you really, start to align with who it's meant for you to align to. Question for you. What is your, and I think I saw a recent reel, so this is of yours. This is at the top of my mind. I don't even know if this was your point, but I had an idea when I saw that reel. I was like, I think I'm going to ask her about that. What is your concept of God or the universe?
I love this. I made this real jokingly yesterday. I really am a big fan of EDM music because it's so unhinged and it's so fun to raise your vibration to and just
I
move
love
at
it.
and it's so random. And there's this one particular song I've been listening to on repeat. And I was like, this would be great for a reel. So my particular concept of a higher power or source is really this energy that is a consciousness of unconditional love. And I actually had a near-death experience where I met that unconditional love source. So for me, this is purely through my lived slash half not lived experience. But it's this ever present, unconditional, loving vibration that is supporting you, it's cheering you on, it loves you in every moment at your best and your worst. It sees you in all of your multifaceted dimensionlessness and loves you. And that is unwavering. And I think, in a lot of different spaces, the concept of God has been used to kind of make people feel lesser than or like they're doing something wrong. They need to follow a rule. They need to be in fear. They're not good enough for the grace of this presence, when really we're all kind of a part of this collective consciousness. So I see everybody like a fragment of that consciousness, and we're all expressing different pieces of that consciousness in each and every one of us.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And how, just so I can finish my own loop, how does that connect with the idiom?
There's this song that is just wild, and it's been, some things live in my head rent free, but the song goes, they must have amnesia. They forgot that I'm him.
Ah,
In the reel, the first part is, when somebody starts preaching to me about God,
hmm.
and the quote part of the song plays, which is they must have amnesia. They forgot that I'm him, which is ironic because I'm a female.
Right.
But it's speaking to that being a fragment of that unconditional love consciousness and how we express that in our humanness.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Amazing. Nice to know. Nice to know that they mentioned that in the song, and that's what led to it. And it's it's fascinating. I think it's so fascinating. It's enjoyable to think about how we're all of these pieces or fragments of the one consciousness or of God. And we get to experience all of these different lives. Like I was telling someone else, because we were getting caught up in the whole past life discussion. And yes, from one perspective, yes, we can choose to believe that we all have separate past lives, but at some point in time they all blur together, and at some point in time you and I are like we're in parallel lives. Like we're the same consciousness, from a different perspective. I don't even know what to call that particular perspective, but it's kind of zooming out as much as we can, right?
That multidimensional awareness of time, which is that it's never ending and that it's not linear and that there's multiple timelines stacked on top of singular timelines, different things happening and occurring in each and every one of those. It can get quite quantum.
Actually, I have one last question. This came to me earlier. So this would relate to anyone, even if you don't consider yourself a sensitive person or an empath. But I think most people are looking for new tools or new perspectives on how to connect to spirit again, a different form of them from a different perspective, or connect to God, like to where they can actually kind of like really feel that connection. I feel like some people feel like it's a little challenging. Do you have any tools that they can kind of experiment with?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing that you can kind of get into is working with a space of visualization for yourself. So just taking the time to really go within and just be open to what you notice and experience. Your awareness is so powerful, your intention is so powerful, and what you kind of explore within your inner landscape changes your outer world. So, really having that concept of when I sit down and I take the time to explore my inner landscape through meditating, through visualization, through just being open and curious, what happens when I start with myself in a field and I start to walk down a path, what unfolds in front of me? Or, any scenery. It just is that inner exploration that can give you so much information and really truly move so much for you at an energetic level. I would say that's a really great place to start is start exploring within yourself, start being curious about yourself, start being really patient and loving towards yourself. Treat yourself like you would a cute little newborn puppy. There's nothing that you're doing that's wrong or bad or needs to be fixed or needs to be better. Give that really to yourself, and it's such an incredible shift that can start to happen for you.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Can you recommend any books or content around sensitivity, abilities, intuitive gifts?
Yeah. So I would say that I have a few different techniques and tools that I teach that I have posted on my YouTube channel that you could check out. Quite a few classes that get into the energy work practices that I teach. I don't have any books off the top of my head that really capture it in the same way that I would like to shout out just yet, but I would say the biggest thing is just to be open and curious and explore and see what works for you and what you're called to. There's no really wrong way to find that connection. Um, Circling back to your original question, I was like, I know I lost the plot here somewhere. I was following the energy. How do you get more connected with that divine source? How do you get connected with spirit? All of that comes from that space within. And when you kind of clear out that inner space, that connection becomes a lot stronger. So, really recognizing that you're not separate from and addressing what things make you feel separate from source.
That part, powerful. So good. This conversation has been amazing. And all of Melanie's info will be in the description. And just really quick, maybe what's your Instagram or what's your quick website that they could hear about?
My Instagram is at _awakened.spirit. My website is melaniesheree.com, and I also own a women's psychic development training academy called awakeningsanctuary.com.
The energy of that feels phenomenal. Thank you again, Melanie. Thank you so much for being here.